My daughter was born exactly 9 months after our wedding. Everyone said it was perfect timing. But even then, something about that night never sat right with me, and 13 years later I found out why. Marriage isn't supposed to feel like a transaction. But that's exactly what mine had turned into. 14 years with Lisa, and lately, every conversation was a negotiation. Every compliment was followed by a jab. It was like walking on glass barefoot every single day. We used to be in sync, laughing over dumb movies, late-night drives for ice cream. But now, she hardly looked up from her phone unless it was to correct me or sigh like I was exhausting her. Our daughter Emily, 13, picked up the attitude. Teenagers can be tough, but there was something else, distance. She barely spoke to me anymore, and when she did, it was clipped and cold. Lisa said it was just stress. Work, bills, hormones, you name it, but the signs weren't adding up. Her late-night yoga sessions that ended with wet hair and no gym bag. Grocery trips that took 3 hours when the store was 10 minutes away. And every time I asked about it, she'd throw it back at me. Maybe you should try trusting me for once. So I did. Until the night I couldn't. It started like nothing. I stopped for gas after closing the dealership. Just wanted to grab a soda and head home. But as I rounded the side of the convenience store, I heard a voice I'd know anywhere. Brad. My best friend since we were 17. My best man. The godfather to my daughter. The guy who fixed every car I sold on the lot. He was laughing on the phone with someone. That loud, smug laugh he always had when he thought he was clever. Yeah, she was mine before the wedding. He still has no clue. If there was a trophy for gullible, he'd have a whole shelf. I stopped dead in my tracks. Oh yeah, we had a thing. Even on the wedding day, man. Right under his nose. Couldn't breathe. My throat closed up, my hands went numb. I peeked around the corner. He was pacing, grinning, oblivious. He was talking about Lisa, about my wedding, about that night. I didn't confront him, didn't say a word. I got in my car and drove. Every memory from the last 14 years crashing down like a tidal wave. That night, our wedding. Lisa had disappeared for about 20 minutes before the ceremony. Said she needed a moment alone. Everyone thought it was cold feet. I thought it was nerves. Now, I wondered what or who she was doing. The more I thought, the worse it got. Emily was born exactly 9 months later. We'd been trying, sure. But Lisa had been on the pill. The doctor blamed stress for it failing. Hormones out of whack. Seemed reasonable. But now it all felt like a story I had swallowed without question. I didn't sleep that night. I stared at the ceiling, heart racing. I needed to know the truth. Not just about Brad. Not just about Lisa. About Emily. If what Brad said was true, there was a chance I wasn't even her father. That thought hit harder than anything else. The next morning, I called a buddy from college, Alex. He worked in a genetics lab at a nearby university hospital. Personal matter, I told him. I need a paternity test. Quiet and fast. Alex didn't ask questions. Bring me 2 swabs. Yours and hers. I'll run it myself. No records. That night, I waited until Emily passed out on the couch. Swabbed the inside of her cheek. Sealed it. Then did mine. Dropped both in a sealed envelope and drove to meet Alex before dawn. As I handed him the samples, I said, "If this comes back the way I think it will, I don't know what I'll do." He looked me straight in the eye. "You sure you want to know?" "I need to." 3 days later, Alex texted, "I have the results. Come alone." I stared at my phone, hands shaking. Whatever was in that envelope was about to burn my entire life to the ground, or prove I'd been living a lie all along. When I looked at the DNA report, I didn't even have to read the whole thing. One number confirmed it all. My daughter had a different father. And I had a pretty good idea who he was. I parked outside Alex's lab, engine running, hand frozen on the key. I must have sat there 10 minutes, staring at the hospital side entrance, wondering if walking in would mean walking out of the life I thought I had. Alex met me in a staff break room with the blinds drawn. No clipboard, no jokes, just a sealed envelope in his hand and a look I hadn't seen since his dad's funeral. He slid the envelope across the table. I triple-checked it. I'm sorry. I opened it slowly, like it might bite. My eyes landed on the one line I couldn't unsee. Probability of paternity 0%. It hit like getting T-boned by a semi. Not even a sliver of a match. Not a decimal. Not a shadow of doubt. Emily wasn't mine. My legs gave out. I sat hard, like the air had been sucked out of my chest. I didn't cry, I couldn't. My body just locked up. I'm here if you need anything, Alex said gently. I nodded, numb. Thanks, man. I just need air. I walked out into the blinding morning sun feeling like a ghost. My phone buzzed. Lisa asking if I'd pick up milk on the way home. Home. That word didn't mean what it used to. Instead of going back, I drove around aimlessly for hours. Ended up at an old viewpoint we used to visit when we were broke and in love. I sat on the hood of my truck, reading that report over and over until the paper crumpled in my hands. Brad. It had to be him. The wedding day comment. The timeline. Emily's birth 9 months later. The sudden shift in Lisa's attitude over the years. And now that I thought about it, Emily's eyes. I'd always chalked up the color difference to Lisa's side of the family. But they weren't from her side. They were Brad's. It all made sense now. I didn't go home that night. Checked into a roadside motel just outside of town. No fancy plans. Just a quiet place with thin walls and a bed that smelled like cheap bleach and old carpet. I needed time. And I needed a plan. This wasn't just about betrayal. It wasn't just about Lisa or Brad. It was about everything they took from me and how I was going to take it back. The next morning, I made 3 moves before breakfast. Called my lawyer. I didn't mention cheating. I asked about property protection, asset restructuring, and how to secure a business before a possible divorce. Transferred my business into a holding company, one that only I controlled. I'd built that dealership from the ground up. If Lisa thought she was going to ride off with half, she had another thing coming. Installed tracking software on Lisa's phone. I needed to know who she was still seeing. If she was still with Brad, or worse, if someone else was involved, this would catch it. At home, I played it cool. Pretended like nothing had changed. Emily didn't seem to notice, but Lisa watched me closely, like a cat sensing the dog wasn't asleep anymore. That night, she curled up beside me in bed, whispering, "You've been quiet lately." I kissed her on the forehead. "Just tired," I said. She smiled like she'd won something. I lay there in the dark, wide awake, memorizing every detail of that moment. It would be the last time I ever touched her with affection. 2 days later, I was in the dealership office when Brad walked in with his usual dumb grin, holding a tray of coffees. "Brought your favorite," he said. "Extra cream, no sugar." I looked up from my desk and forced a smile. "Thanks. Real thoughtful of you." He laughed. "Hey, you're the boss." He didn't notice my eyes burning through him. I didn't want to fight. Not yet. I wanted to take everything he thought he had and make sure he never got it again. That night, I opened the tracking app. Lisa's location pinged. She wasn't at yoga. She wasn't at Claire's. She was at a hotel. And the phone beside hers? Brad's. She wasn't at yoga. She wasn't at book club. Lisa was at a hotel, and Brad's phone was parked in the same lot. They didn't know it yet, but that night marked the start of their last days of comfort. There it was on the screen. A modest 2-star hotel just off Highway 17. Lisa's phone had been there for 37 minutes. Brad's location hadn't moved either. I stared at those glowing red dots on my tracking app, feeling nothing. No anger, no heartbreak, just focus. Like I was rewiring myself in real time. They were still seeing each other. 13 years. Behind my back. And worse. He was in my house, eating at my table, fixing my cars, calling me brother. The tracking app was synced with timestamps. I took a screenshot. Then another 10 minutes later. Then again. I needed a record. I wasn't confronting them yet. This wasn't about feelings. This was about strategy. By the time they left the hotel, I'd already opened an encrypted folder on my laptop and labeled it Project Clean Exit. The next day, I called my accountant, Tom. "Hey, I need to reclassify a few assets. For tax reasons, I said casually. Also want to set up 2 holding companies, just for some real estate and operating capital. Nothing shady. Tom's the type who doesn't ask questions. He just makes the numbers work. You got it. Timeline? Make it quick, I told him. Couple weeks max. I wasn't kidding. I knew I only had a small window before this all blew up, and I intended to be 10 steps ahead by the time it did. Later that week, I dropped by a storage facility. Signed a 6-month lease on a climate-controlled unit. Then I started slowly moving things. Tools from the garage, paperwork from my office, sentimental stuff Lisa never touched. Anything I'd want if the house turned into a war zone. At home, Lisa played the role of the caring wife again. Said I seemed less cranky. That maybe we were getting back to our old selves. She even made lasagna, her forgive-me dish. I smiled, ate half, complimented her cooking. And as I did, I checked the app. Brad's phone had pinged at a nearby bar, just down the road. Not at work. Not at his place. Not even pretending anymore. I didn't say a word. I just asked her about Emily. How's she doing? She seems distant lately. Lisa shrugged. Teenage girls. You know how it is. Yeah. I knew. But something about the way she answered felt rehearsed. That night, after Lisa fell asleep, I stood in Emily's doorway for a few minutes. She was asleep, headphones in, curled up with the blanket her grandmother made. My chest tightened. Not because she wasn't mine, but because despite it all, I still saw her as my daughter. I didn't swab her cheek for revenge. I did it because I needed the truth. But now that I had it, I realized, biology doesn't undo years of bedtime stories, Christmas mornings, scraped knees and spelling tests. She was mine. Maybe not on paper, but in every other way that counted. The next morning, I told my assistant Rachel to schedule all service work with someone new. No more Brad, I said. Tell him we're going in a different direction. She looked surprised. Want me to give him a reason? Tell him I said thanks for everything. But we've grown apart. She nodded. Rachel's sharp. I didn't have to spell it out. At lunch, Brad showed up. Hey man, Rachel said you're cutting me out. Kept it light. Just testing new vendors. Trying to diversify the workload. He looked confused. I thought I was your guy. You were, I said. Things change. He didn't argue. Just stood there like a dog who didn't understand why the food bowl was empty. Good. By the time the weekend rolled around, I had an entire folder of location data, screenshots, and timestamps. Lisa and Brad were meeting at least twice a week. Once at the hotel. Once at our house, while Emily was at school. While I was at work. She brought him into my home. My bedroom. My life. Sunday night, after dinner, Lisa kissed me on the cheek and whispered, maybe we should plan a weekend getaway. Just us. I looked her in the eye, smiled, and said, sure, let me finish something first. In my head, I was already packing her a one-way trip she'd never forget. She asked me to plan a romantic weekend. What she didn't know was I already was, just not the kind that comes with rose petals and spa robes. When your wife is cheating on you with your best friend and you've got proof, you've got 2 options. Blow up, or build a bomb that detonates on your terms. I chose the second. Lisa floated around all week like we were back in the honeymoon phase. Touchy. Playful. Even suggested we go look at lake cabins. Just for fun. It was almost too perfect. And the more she leaned in, the calmer I got. Because I already knew what was coming. Behind the scenes, I was setting every domino in place. Step 1. Control the narrative. I met with a family attorney not to file yet, but to prepare. Told him I had a premarital home, a business I owned solo before marriage, and a daughter that may not be biologically mine. He raised an eyebrow. Do you have proof? I slid the DNA report across the table. His eyebrows disappeared under his hairline. We'll need to tread carefully. She's been raising her, but technically, I'm not abandoning them, I said. I just want to make sure I'm not destroyed for walking away from a life built on lies. He nodded. Then we start with legal insulation. Quietly. Perfect. Step 2. Gather witnesses. I invited my in-laws over for dinner the following Saturday. Lisa was thrilled, claimed it would be just like old times. I had a plan for that evening, and it had nothing to do with bonding. Emily was unusually quiet during dinner, barely touching her food. Lisa's dad asked if everything was okay. "She's just tired from school," Lisa said quickly. I looked at Emily. She gave a small shrug but didn't speak. That bothered me. After dessert, Lisa sent me to get wine from the basement. I brought my phone with me, turned on the voice recorder, and left it recording in the corner of the room. When I came back up, I stayed quiet and listened. That night, once the guests were gone and Lisa was asleep, I replayed the recording. What I heard made my stomach drop. Lisa and her mom were in the kitchen whispering. "You're still seeing him?" her mom asked. "Only when I have time," Lisa whispered. "Mark's been distracted. It's easy. You know this will all explode eventually." "He's too soft to do anything," Lisa said. "Even if he finds out, he won't leave. He's comfortable." That was the moment I stopped thinking of her as my wife. Step 3. Cut off her comfort. I contacted the utility companies and changed billing to my business account, but set notices to my private inbox. I prepaid 3 months of property tax, just in case. Then I paid off the mortgage. She didn't notice any of it. The next day, I called my assistant Rachel into the office. "I'm selling the business," I told her. She froze. "What? Why?" "I'm transferring ownership on paper to 2 holding companies. You'll manage daily operations. You'll get a raise. But I need your silence." She studied me for a moment. "Does this have to do with Lisa and Brad?" I didn't answer. She nodded. "I've got your back. Always." Step 4. End Brad. I invited Brad out for drinks. Played it like old times. Laughed, joked, clinked glasses. Even paid the tab. When we stepped outside, I clapped him on the back. "Hey, could you do one more inspection job for me next week?" He grinned. "You got it, brother." I smiled back. One last time. I already knew Rachel had reassigned the job to someone else. Brad would show up, tools in hand, and be told we were trying new vendors. He was already fired. He just didn't know it yet. That night, Lisa cuddled up next to me and whispered, "You're different lately. I like it. It's like I have the old you back." I kissed her forehead and said, "Don't worry, babe. Everything's about to change." And it was. Just not in the way she'd ever imagine. Brad showed up at my business with tools in hand, expecting another paycheck. What he got instead was the beginning of the end, for both of them. Brad always had this walk, confident, almost cocky. The kind of strut someone has when they believe nothing could possibly go wrong. He had that same swagger when he strolled into my dealership on Monday morning, lugging his red toolbox, ready to work on cars I never planned to let him touch again. I was standing at the front desk, going over some inventory adjustments with Rachel, when he walked in. "Hey, Mark, ready to get to work?" Rachel didn't even look up. She handed him a clipboard and said, "No need. We've got everything handled." He blinked. "Wait, handled? You mean the new batch?" "Yep, already reassigned." He looked at me, confused. "You didn't tell me?" I shrugged. "We're moving in a new direction, trying out some fresh talent. You've been overloaded anyway." He laughed awkwardly. "Man, I could have used that paycheck." "You serious?" I nodded, firm. "Yeah, I'm serious." He glanced at Rachel, then back at me. "So that's it? After all these years?" I tilted my head. "Brad, you've been working for yourself this whole time, remember? You told me once you'd never be caught dead, working for a guy with a name like mine." He opened his mouth, then closed it. Rachel excused herself, sensing the shift in the air. Brad leaned in. "Is this about Lisa?" I didn't flinch. "Should it be?" He froze for a second, then laughed again, but it was weaker this time. "I don't know what you think you know, man." I cut him off. "Don't insult both of us by pretending." He tried again. "It was a long time ago, a mistake. If you're going to throw away a friendship, I'm not throwing away anything, I said, staring him down. I'm taking back what was mine. That shut him up. I watched him leave the dealership like a man who just realized the floor he'd been walking on was glass. And it was cracking. Step 5. Tell no one, control everything. That afternoon, Lisa texted me from work, thinking of taking Emily to the movies tonight. Want to join? I replied, got some late stuff at the dealership. You two go ahead. They didn't go to the movies. At 7:34 p.m., her phone pinged at the same hotel. Brad's did too, 4 minutes later. Another screenshot. Another timestamp. Another piece of the puzzle. She came home at 10:52 p.m., hair damp from a shower at her sister's. I was already in bed, pretending to sleep. She crawled in beside me, whispered, "Missed you today," and fell asleep within minutes. I stared at the ceiling for hours. She wasn't just lying to me. She was lying with ease, practiced, polished, like this had become second nature. The next morning, I emailed my lawyer. Subject: ready. He replied within minutes. Let's move to phase 2. Step 6. Real estate lockdown. We filed a document transferring the house into a protected trust, owned by my business. I still paid all the bills, still handled the maintenance. But if Lisa tried to come after it in a divorce, she'd hit a wall. That same day, I updated my will. If anything happened to me, Emily would be cared for. But Lisa wouldn't touch a cent of my assets. The plan was working. Quiet, clean, invisible. At least until Emily cracked it wide open. It happened 3 nights later. We were sitting at dinner, just the 3 of us. Lisa was bragging about her new haircut, asking for compliments. I said it looked nice. Emily didn't say anything. Lisa asked, "You okay, Em?" Emily shrugged. "I just don't like being lied to." Lisa blinked. "What do you mean?" I froze. Emily pushed her plate away. "I know you've been seeing Brad." Lisa's smile shattered. "What?" She laughed. "That's ridiculous." Emily looked straight at me. "Dad, I read the messages a year ago. I saw everything. I just didn't know what to do. I couldn't speak. My throat closed." Lisa stammered, "You're spying on me?" Emily stood up. "No. You left your phone unlocked. You were sloppy. And you didn't even care if I saw." She stormed off. Lisa turned to me, pale, panicked. "She's just a kid. She doesn't understand." I stared at her, calm. "No. She understands perfectly." That night, I packed a single duffel bag and moved into my apartment above the bookstore. Lisa didn't even know I had it. And when she woke up the next morning to an empty bed and a silent house, the first words out of her mouth weren't, "Where's Mark?" They were, "Did he find out?" She should have been more worried about what I was going to do next. I didn't scream. I didn't leave a note. I just vanished. And by the time they realized what I'd done, it was already too late to stop it. The apartment above the bookstore wasn't fancy. 1 bedroom, small kitchen. The smell of coffee and paperback pages always floating in through the vents. But it was quiet, clean, mine. I slept like a stone that first night. By sunrise, I had a plan for the next 72 hours, and I stuck to it like a man possessed. First, I turned off my phone. Not just silenced, off. No notifications. No guilt-tripping texts. No, "Can we talk?" messages from Lisa. If she really wanted to talk, she'd have to scream loud enough to reach me through all the walls she helped build. I knew what would happen next. The second I didn't come home, she'd panic. Not out of worry, but because she'd lose control. And that's exactly what happened. When I finally turned the phone back on that evening, there were 5 voicemails from Lisa, 2 from Brad, and 1 unexpected one from Rachel. Lisa's messages ranged from confusion to anger. "Where are you? This isn't funny, Mark. You don't just leave like this. This is abandonment. If you don't come home, I'll talk to a lawyer." Brad's message was more casual, but it dripped with nerves. "Hey man, I don't know what's going on, but I think Lisa's freaking out. You guys okay? Let me know." Then there was Rachel. "Hey, just thought you should know Brad showed up here this morning, pacing in the parking lot. Said he wanted to clear the air." I told him you weren't here and that we're not giving out your schedule anymore. I called Rachel back. Thank you, I said. No problem. You okay? Better than I've been in years. That night, I wrote a single letter, sealed it in an envelope and dropped it off at my lawyer's office. Inside was everything. The DNA results, the hotel timestamps, transcripts of Lisa's phone data, and a signed declaration stating that I was vacating the home temporarily, not abandoning my family. It was airtight. Let her try to spin this as me walking out. My lawyer could prove I'd been driven out by lies. The next day, I showed up at the dealership like it was just another Tuesday. Staff was surprised to see me in jeans instead of a suit. I smiled, taking some personal time, not leaving the company, just scaling back. Then I pulled Rachel into the office. Activate the transfer, I told her. The company legally became the property of the second holding firm that afternoon. I now technically worked for someone else, someone who just so happened to also be me. Lisa couldn't touch a single bolt, title, or commission. On paper, she was married to a man with no assets, no equity, and no official business holdings. That night, I finally answered her call. Mark, where have you been? She demanded. Out. You left without a word. I needed space. For how long? Until I figure out what to do with a wife who's been lying to me for over a decade. Silence. Then, you have no proof of anything. I have everything, including hotel timestamps, your messages, and a DNA test that proves Emily isn't mine. She gasped. The silence that followed was so thick, I could hear her swallow. You tested her? No, I tested us. And you failed. More silence. Then came the bargaining. We can fix this, Mark. You're still her father. I cut her off. I know, and I will always be. But you're not my wife anymore. You gave that title to someone else the moment you stepped into a hotel room with him. Again. She tried one more move, tears. I never stopped loving you. But you did stop respecting me. I want to talk in person, she whispered. I smiled into the phone. Oh, don't worry. You'll see me soon. She didn't realize the next time she saw me, it would be through the front window, standing next to a process server. She thought I'd crawl back. Instead, she got served, in front of our daughter, the man she betrayed me with, and the home I built from nothing. I could have had the papers delivered quietly. Could have had the process server hand her the envelope at work, or slip it into her mailbox. But Lisa didn't do quiet, so I made sure it happened loud. Saturday morning, I parked across the street from the house I used to call home. I hadn't been back since I walked out with a duffel bag and a calm fury in my chest. The yard was overgrown, the porch light still flickering from the storm 2 weeks ago. She hadn't fixed it. She probably assumed I would. A silver sedan pulled into the driveway behind her car. Brad, of course. I waited as they went inside. At exactly 10:15 a.m., the process server walked up the path in a polo shirt and jeans. Just a regular guy, envelope in hand. Knocked twice. Lisa answered, dressed in sweats, mug in hand. Lisa Dalton? Yes. You've been served. He handed her the envelope and walked away like he was delivering pizza. No emotion. No fanfare. But what I saw on Lisa's face from across the street. Panic. Brad came to the door behind her, squinting at the server walking away. Lisa turned to him, said something. He stepped back like someone had slapped him. Then, like fate had perfect timing, Emily came downstairs, stood at the door, looked at both of them. 3 of them, a fake family, standing on my porch. I stepped out of the car and walked across the street. Lisa spotted me before I hit the sidewalk. Mark. Morning, I said calm. How's everyone doing? She held the envelope in both hands, like she didn't know what to do with it. What is this? Divorce papers. Full custody petition. Request for genetic disestablishment of paternity. Also an eviction notice. Brad took a step forward. Hey man. I cut him off. No, don't. Not now. Not in front of her. Emily was staring at me wide-eyed. Dad. I knelt down to her level. Emily, this isn't your fault. You didn't ask for any of this. And no matter what happens, you'll always have me. Tears welled up in her eyes. But, am I really not? Biology doesn't mean anything to me. I raised you. I was there every day. And I still will be. But some things need to change. Okay? She nodded slowly. I stood back up, facing Lisa and Brad. I'll give you until the end of the month to move out. The deed is in my name. Always has been. Utilities and taxes are paid through January. After that, you're on your own. Lisa's mouth opened like she wanted to argue, but nothing came out. Brad looked like he wanted to disappear. I turned to leave but paused. Emily, grab your overnight bag. You're staying with me this weekend. We didn't talk much on the drive to the apartment. I put on some music she liked, and she just stared out the window. But when we got inside, she sat on the couch, looked around, and whispered, "It's nice here. Peaceful." "Yeah," I said. "That's the point." She didn't ask about her mom. She didn't ask about Brad. She just asked if I could make pancakes for dinner. I did. That night, I emailed my lawyer. Subject: Serve Phase 2. The next day, I got a text from Rachel. Brad applied at Quick Fix Oil. They start him Monday. $13 an hour. And just like that, the man who once mocked my heritage, slept with my wife and laughed behind my back, was changing filters at a strip mall garage while trying to afford groceries in a house I still owned. She asked to talk one last time, no lawyers, no threats, just us. I agreed. Not to reconcile, but to finally hear the truth. And once I did, I knew I was done forever. 3 weeks had passed since she was served. The house was half empty. Emily was now spending most of her time with me, by her own choice. Lisa hadn't even tried to fight it, probably because she knew if it went to court, she'd lose everything. Then one night my phone buzzed. It was Lisa. "Can we talk? Just you and me. Please. No drama." I stared at the screen for a long time. I didn't know her anything, but I had one question that still haunted me. Why did she marry me if she was already his? So I texted back. "Tomorrow. Denny's. 2 p.m. public place. No lawyers." When I walked into that booth the next day, she was already there. Makeup-free, hoodie, no ring. She looked more nervous than I'd ever seen her. "Thank you for coming," she said quietly. I nodded. No handshake. No smile. "I just want to understand," I said, voice low and steady. "That's all." Lisa sighed. "It started before we were even engaged. Brad and we hooked up a few times. I thought it was nothing serious. But when you proposed, I didn't know how to tell you. You could have said no." "I should have," she admitted. "But I loved you. I really did. I just didn't want to lose either of you." I shook my head slowly. "So you said yes while pregnant with his child?" She winced. "I didn't know for sure who she was. I hoped it was yours. But you kept seeing him after she was born." She nodded. "For 13 years. "I know," she whispered. "I know what that makes me." "No, you don't. Because if you did, you wouldn't have kept doing it. You didn't stop. You only got better at hiding it." Lisa wiped a tear from her cheek. "I tried to stop. But Brad, he always knew how to pull me back in. So why now? Why ask to meet me?" She looked up at me, eyes red. "Because I don't want to lose everything. And because I miss the man who used to look at me like I was the only person in the room." I leaned back. "That man died the day I opened that DNA envelope." Silence hung between us for a long minute. "You ever wonder why Emily acts cold toward you?" I asked. She blinked. "What?" "She told me. She found your texts with Brad over a year ago. She's known. She kept your secret because she didn't want to destroy the family." Lisa looked shattered. "I didn't know she saw." "She saw everything." Lisa buried her face in her hands. "I ruined her." "No," I said, standing up. "You ruined yourself. Emily's going to be just fine. She still has one parent who never lied to her." She looked up, desperate. "Can we try therapy? For the family?" I stared at her like I was seeing a stranger. "Therapy doesn't cure selfishness." I left enough money on the table to cover her coffee. Didn't wait for her to say goodbye. Later that night, I got a text from Lisa. Just know I really did love you. Even if I didn't deserve you. I didn't reply. Some doors need to stay closed, especially the ones that lead to hell in disguise. For months later, the divorce was finalized. She walked out of that courtroom with a fraction of what she expected. Brad, still turning wrenches at Quick Fix. Me, still tucking in the daughter who chose me, not because of blood, but because I never left. And for the first time in years, I finally felt like I was home. I lost a marriage, a best friend, and the illusion of fatherhood. But sitting in my quiet apartment, drinking coffee with my daughter, I realized I hadn't lost anything that truly mattered. The divorce was final. The ink was dry. And Lisa walked out of that courtroom with a look I hadn't seen on her face in years. Silence. Not rage. Not manipulation. Just silence. She'd asked the judge for spousal support. Denied. Tried to argue for partial ownership of the dealership. Denied. Claimed abandonment. My lawyer presented the letter, the financial receipts, and the video logs from the house I still owned. Game. Set. Match. Brad wasn't even there. Couldn't get time off work at the oil change shop. I heard he was living in a small rental outside town. Driving a rusted-out pickup with one working speaker. Most of the guys who used to laugh at his jokes didn't even return his calls anymore. Funny how quickly people scatter when they realize the funny guy is just a liar with a wrench. Emily chose to live with me full-time. Lisa didn't fight that either. Not after the judge saw her messages, the test results, and the school counselor's statement Emily had quietly submitted on her own. At 13, my daughter had more strength than most adults I knew. Now, every morning, we wake up to sunlight pouring through the bookstore windows. I make pancakes or eggs, depending on her mood, and we sit on the tiny balcony, sipping coffee and hot chocolate, watching the world go by. Sometimes, she'll just say, "It's quiet here," and I always answer, "That's the best part." One Saturday afternoon, Rachel stopped by with a file. "You're officially off the books," she said. "The dealership's in full swing. Everyone's adjusted. Even our new tech." I grinned. "How's his work?" "Better than Brad's, and he doesn't come with drama." We laughed. I couldn't remember the last time I laughed like that. Unforced. Real. As she stood to leave, Rachel hesitated. "You know, when you first told me what was happening, I thought you were being dramatic. But watching how you handled everything, you didn't just walk away. You outplayed them." I shrugged. "Wasn't about revenge." "Not really." She smirked. "Then why did you rename the holding company Helpless Auto?" I chuckled. "Because it's exactly what they became when the truth finally caught up to them." That night, I sat out on the balcony while Emily worked on her homework. I cracked open a beer, watched the city lights, and for the first time in over a decade, I didn't feel the weight of pretending. I wasn't trying to save a marriage. I wasn't trying to defend my reputation. I wasn't trying to fix what someone else had shattered. I was just living, and that, I realized, was the most powerful revenge of all. Lisa texted me one more time that week. "Emily won't answer my calls. Can you talk to her, please?" I showed Emily the message. She read it, then quietly said, "I'll decide when I'm ready." And I didn't push, because healing isn't something you schedule. It's something you choose. She said she still loved me. He said it was just a mistake. But standing in front of the home I built, watching them walk away for the last time, I felt absolutely nothing. And that was the best feeling in the world. It was moving day, the end of the month, just like I promised. Lisa and Brad had rented a small 2-bedroom on the edge of town. Nothing fancy. Not bad, but nothing close to what they were leaving behind. My old house sat quiet behind them, boxed-up memories stacked in the garage. I stood across the street again, leaning on my car, watching them load the last few pieces into Brad's beat-up truck. Emily wasn't with me. She was at a friend's sleepover. She didn't want to be there for this part. Said she had closure already. Good for her. Lisa spotted me, walked across the street, alone. She looked worn. No makeup, loose hair, no sparkle left. "I just wanted to say thank you," she said, for not making this uglier than it had to be. I gave a half smile. Didn't have to make it ugly. The truth did that all on its own. She nodded. I know. I wanted different. You wanted everything, I corrected her. 2 men. 1 life. Perfect lie. You gambled with real people and thought no one would fold. Her eyes glossed over. I never wanted to hurt anyone. But you did. Brad waved from the driveway like we were buddies. I didn't wave back. Lisa followed my eyes. He's not who I thought he was either. None of us are, I said. The difference is, I never lied about it. She didn't respond. Just looked down, then back up with one final question. Do you think she'll ever forgive me? Maybe, I said. But don't ask her to forget. Then I turned and walked away. I didn't look back. Didn't need to. I'd seen enough of their backs in the rear view. Later that week, I met Rachel at the Rusty Spur to celebrate closing on a new property. A second lot to expand the dealership under its new name. Crazy how fast things changed, she said, sipping iced tea. Not really, I replied. They were always this way. I just stopped pretending they weren't. She tilted her head. So what now? I thought about it. About the apartment. The dealership. Emily. My piece. Now, I said, I build something better. Slower. And this time, no one gets keys unless they earn them. She smiled. You ever think about dating again? Someday, I said. But not yet. Rachel raised her glass. To someday. We clinked. That night, I came home to find Emily on the balcony, sketching the city skyline. She looked up. How was the meeting? Good, I said. We're expanding. She smiled. You deserve it. I paused, then asked, Your mom texted again. I know. I'll reply when I'm ready. I nodded. Want some hot chocolate? Only if you make it the old way with the cinnamon. You got it. I headed to the kitchen, the soft hum of the city coming through the window. No chaos, no lies, just peace. I didn't win back my old life. I buried it. And in its place, I built something stronger. A life where truth matters, love is earned, and peace isn't quiet. It's loud enough to fill every room I walk into.